Good morning, everyone. We've got quite a few participants registered, so I'm just going to let everyone get in from the waiting room, and we'll kick off once it starts to settle down. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for joining me. My name is Scott Macmillan. I'm the Managing Director and CEO of Invictus Energy. Obviously, today a very, very significant milestone for the company, for our shareholders, and a very pleasing day. And we've made a discovery in Mukuyu. So this is what we've been striving for over a number of years. Some of us have been trying to shepherd this through for over 10 years. So it's a very, very momentous day and momentous occasion, and looking forward, obviously, to a very bright future for Invictus and for our shareholders. So a recap of this morning's announcement. I'm not going to read through it in verbatim, so I'll just put it up on the screen here so everyone can see it. If you haven't seen it, it's available on our website or on the ASX platform. But I'll go through some of the detail very, very shortly. We have recovered gas from the Upper Angwa, which has been one of our primary targets for a number, since we started this exploration program. We recovered 2 sample chambers from 2 depths in the Upper Angwa. We were drilling through, and during observing the real-time data, mud gas, we decided to take the opportunity, whilst the logging conditions were good, given the challenges that we had in the past, to really go and bank some samples and get that under our belt and deliver, I think, what people have been looking for. So we've done that. I've got some better pictures of the sample chambers coming up. But again, proving up a discovery, and subsequently we can declare Mukuyu-1 as a discovery as well. That as a result of collecting fluid samples from the Upper Angwa, evaluating the logs, we've got logs from the same geological unit in Mukuyu-1, and therefore can declare that as a discovery as well. So we've drilled that 7 kilometers away from Mukuyu-2, a very large step out, particularly in the early stages of a basin. But this just gives you an idea of the scale of what we're chasing. Mukuyu is a 200 square kilometer closure feature, and obviously that opens up a huge potential resource size. And I think importantly, as we've foreshadowed in the announcement, is that the Lower Angwa is still to come, where we see thicker reservoirs. So looking at Mukuyu-2 and where we are currently, this was the planned vertical sidetrack that we conducted. I'll show you a better picture in the moment. We are basically at the base of the Upper Angwa, and we were running in hole last night, preparing to drill ahead for the Lower Angwa, which will take us down to roughly 3,400 meters above where we saw overpressured gas in the Lower Angwa. We saw some additional gas-bearing units from the depth that we are now down to 3,400 meters. But beneath 3,400 meters, we've got some additional reservoirs which are gas-bearing but overpressured, which made our evaluation of Mukuyu-2 in the main bore difficult, because we had to raise the mud weight to keep control of the well, to make sure that we didn't have any gas influx, and ultimately could have led to a blowout So we've taken a different approach to Mukuyu-2, make sure that we are keeping within the realms of where we can handle these sections and complete our logging evaluation program and capture samples, which has been the primary objective for this plan. Just a reminder, Mukuyu-1 versus Mukuyu-2, we are 7 kilometers away. And we've got this enormous structure. This is just the Upper Angwa closure through here. So a huge amount of running room. Again, we've drilled relatively crestal at Mukuyu-2 and quite far down dip in Mukuyu-1. So 450 meters up dip, 7 kilometers away. That is a very, very substantial step out and proving gas in those 2 units. We haven't encountered any water-bearing intervals in the Upper Angwa yet. Once we're in the gas leg, obviously a good sign. And you know, this contour where we've got through here, that's holding firm at the moment in terms of you know, potential closure and fill of the structure. And then again in the Lower Angwa, we still haven't encountered or interpreted any water-bearing reservoir as well. So very, very good news so far. So these are the pressurized sample chambers that we've retrieved from downhole from Mukuyu-1. There's 3 in this box. There's another 3 in another box waiting to be shipped off to the lab. These are from 2 depths, 2,583. That is the very first hydrocarbon-bearing interval, or say net bearing interval for the Upper Angwa, where we get into the first underneath the first seal for a proper seal for the Upper Angwa. And then we've got another one here, 2,780, which is down towards the you know, probably base of the Upper Angwa gas bearing intervals. So we've got 2. We elected to preserve the sampling tool, given that we've only got 1 tool of our primary sampling tool, 1 of our backups. So we you know, being mindful of the challenges that we've had in the past, we wanted to ensure that we could complete sampling in the Lower Angwa unit as well. So we didn't go and get any more samples. We've preserved the tool for the Lower Angwa unit for this next run. So just to run through the Upper Angwa, as I mentioned, we've got 2 gas samples from 2 depths. We called intermediate TD following those observations. And really that was the opportunity to fulfill our primary objective of gathering reservoir fluids and being able to declare a discovery. And that's what we set out to do with this well. And we've achieved that, which is, you know, a fantastic result. You know, amazing feeling for all of the team who've worked on this very, very hard for a very long time, and a very small but a very dedicated team, and it shows you what you can do with you know, everyone who's committed to the cause, believes in it, as our shareholders have. So it's a really momentous occasion. Now regarding the net pay, we have released some very preliminary net pay numbers. So just remind everyone that these are very early days still. And these are static cutoffs that we've used. So what that means is they're just from the petrophysical logs. They've got no relation to flow and those abilities. So those estimates will come in time once we gather more data from again, from cores, from flow testing, from dynamic behavior, because ultimately at the end of the day, your net reservoir and your net pay is from what the reservoir contributes over a production time frame. So every basin is different. Every basin evolves as you get more and more data, and that's happened, you know, time and time again. So in these rift basin settings, in this fluvial environment, these are fairly typical early opening pay numbers. In Puta and Warrego, the basin opening discoveries in the Albertine Graben that was spearheaded by Tallow and Hardman were 12 meters in Puta in the first one, and 26 meters in Warrego in the second one. So again, once the data came in, you're able to refine those estimates, and those numbers change. Also, these early wells are only targeted on 2D seismic. We've got still relatively coarse 2D seismic, you know, roughly 1.7 to 1.9 kilometers line spacing. And so we've really been targeting Mukuyu-1 and Mukuyu-2 based on structural considerations of this Mukuyu feature, and that is to go up and prove the play. So we wanted to make sure that we targeted in a structure that was going to be valid, that was going to trap hydrocarbons, but not necessarily where you're going to encounter the best reservoir. We've proved now all of those elements in the Cabora Bassa Basin: reservoir, source, seal, trap, and the fifth one is timing, which you need all of those to work together. So now what typically starts to happen is you go out and shoot 3D, and that allows you to map these features, map the reservoirs in better detail, and then you're able to go and target these in future wells. And now you're not worried about all of those other elements because you know that the play works, and so you can go and hunt for bigger, thicker reservoir intervals, and you'll start to get an idea of how those are spatially at the moment on 2D seismic very, very difficult to map. So where we have drilled Mukuyu-1 and Mukuyu-2 is highly likely to be, from a reservoir perspective, not in the optimal spot, and that's what we find. So when we've got more data, what you typically start to see is big fields get bigger, and we think that's what's going to happen in Mukuyu. So again, remind people, very early days. We've got to treat this with a lot of uncertainty in the bounds of what we're able to put in for those cutoffs. But once we get more data and that evolves, those numbers will change, and we look forward to updating our shareholders as we digest the information and we get more and we begin to understand what is a very, very big structure, lots of reservoirs, and again, a significant amount of gross reservoir that we've got that falls beneath the current net pay cutoffs. But once we're able to refine those numbers will undoubtedly change. Okay, moving on to the Lower Angwa. Our focus is now on completing the drilling. We are, to be honest, I haven't looked at where we are this morning. I haven't had the chance. We are drilling ahead to section TD at 3,400 meters. So in Mukuyu-2, we did observe thicker reservoir intervals in the Lower Angwa. This is a massive sandstone, massive member, it's called, from the geologist who named this formation, whereas the Upper Angwa is more of a sort of meandering fluvial environment. So we do get thicker reservoirs in the Lower Angwa, and we've also observed, and again, only the first penetration in the basin in the Lower Angwa. To date, we've observed better reservoir quality in the Lower Angwa than we have in the Upper Angwa. So we believe that so far, and again, I'm going to caveat this with it being early days, but the reservoir properties are more related to depositional environment rather than overburden. So that bodes well then for targeting the Lower Angwa in other parts of the field. So we will drill to TD, we'll log, we'll gather more fluid samples, and then we'll provide final results for the Lower Angwa as well. Again, a reminder to everyone that we've got still additional potential beneath where we're going to TD here in this well. We did encounter overpressured gas in the Lower Angwa from beneath 3,400 meters. And as I said, that caught us a little bit off guard in Mukuyu-2. The poor pressure prediction that we had done independently didn't predict pressures this high. But again, having overpressured gas is a good news story. It just requires a very different approach in terms of management and how we construct our wells in the future. So we're going to evaluate the top part of the Lower Angwa that we penetrated. The Lower Angwa is a very, very substantial unit, up to, I think, 2,500 meters thick in some of the basins. So there is a lot still of Lower Angwa beneath us, and we'll be able to drill that out in 6-inch hole in the future. So still a lot ahead of us. Again, we're still focused and on delivering in the Lower Angwa, and I must say that the team to date has done an exceptional job. It is what we're doing in a frontier basin, only the second well, very quick turnaround time from Mukuyu-1. We've done it all ourselves. in terms of our small team and our group of consultants that we've brought in to assist us and to do this we did it in the first one of the basin. We just couldn't provide the receipts in terms of a fluid sample. We have that now from Mukuyu-2, and that is an absolutely phenomenal achievement to do that from the first 2 wells in the basin. So really proud of the team. They have, delivered in spades on this quite crazy adventure that we've been on for the last few years. So just a reminder, Mukuyu-1 and Mukuyu-2, we are 7 kilometers apart. This is a bit of an odd mishmatch of seismic survey lines. You can see here, this is the CB21 line down here. We've got the old mobile line, the 1991, and then that comes across to back to the line number 11 on the new survey that we shot in 2021. So this is the interval that we penetrated in Mukuyu-1, where we had multiple gas-bearing reservoirs. And this is where we're on Mukuyu-2. We're 7 kilometers away, 450 meters up dip. That's a very, very substantial amount of gas in between these two intervals that we have now proven that there are hydrocarbons. And then the next part is going to be the Lower Angwa. So we've got this section through here, which we are planning to drill ahead to, and that is a gas discovery to be confirmed. All we need is a fluid sample, and we're confident of delivering those from the Lower Angwa based on what we've seen from Mukuyu-2, the original main bore, and again from the Upper Angwa in the sidetrack. And then what does this mean for us in the future? So I think if you go back to some of our previous presentations earlier in the year, we provided a sort of roadmap of how these basins unfold. And once you prove a discovery in one of your prospects and the basin works, the petroleum system works, it opens up the running room in the remainder of the basin. So we've got a very, very exciting position now in the Cabora Bassa Basin. We've tied up and we have all of the conventional pay fairway within the basin. We've got multiple prospects mapped. We've got a continuation of the central fairway trend from Mukuyu, where we've now discovered hydrocarbons over to the east through here, where we've acquired some new 2D data earlier this year that's currently finish up processing, and we've just begun some preliminary interpretation of the time-based data, and we'll have the depth converted data by the end of the year. Seeing some already very exciting and very interesting features on this new data. So the prospectivity, we don't need to call it prospectivity in the field that we've proven in Mukuyu over here. We've got a trend now that extends, and we can see similarities in that data over in the east here. And then we have the basin margin play as well down in the south, which we are still yet to test. Different play type, potentially more liquids prone in this basin. What we did gather now from Mukuyu-2, which we missed in Mukuyu-1 because of some of the challenges we had with a previous service provider for the mud gas unit, we saw hydrocarbons through the entire well section up to the top seal of the Dandy. So we have got hydrocarbons migrating through every single formation within the Cabora Bassa Basin that we've penetrated. Now, with additional data, we'll be able to go and map this and figure out where these hydrocarbons have migrated to in these shadow units. So, things like the Pebbly Arcos, which has some fantastic reservoir up above the Upper Angwa. We recovered some residual gas from there. Elsewhere in the structure, this is going to be in a trapping configuration where we are going to be able to find it in where we've got hydrocarbons migrated and that have remained trapped in the subsurface rather than just having migrated through or leaked out because of some lateral seal issues. So Pebbly Arcos is a very exciting target, as well as the Dandy, where again we have residual gas interpreted or residual hydrocarbons, I should say. Couldn't tell if it was gas or oil, but residual hydrocarbons in the Dandy unit as well in Mukuyu-2. So in this fault block where we drilled Mukuyu Mukuyu-2. This is a little propped up horse block, and the lateral seal for some of these doesn't work. It's got a leak point either side through here that you can see in the Dandy. So in other areas of the basin where these are in better trapping configurations, we're going to go and be able to find hydrocarbons in those formations as well. So what we've done now with the discovery in Mukuyu-2 and Mukuyu-1 is now open up the running room for the entire basin. And that is a very, very exciting position to be in. As we've seen unfold in Uganda, in Kenya, Perth Basin, Guyana, Namibia, and the Orange Basin, you don't find these things in isolation. Once you make a discovery, it's I think I've said before in a previous reservoir, it's as close as you get to shooting fish in a barrel from an exploration perspective, and you see repeatable success. So we're looking to build on our portfolio, on our discoveries, and that that's a very, very exciting place to be, particularly because we control the running room with our high equities. So on that, I know there are a lot of questions. I've got a few minutes to take a couple of them before I have to go. I've got a busy day lined up with obviously a lot of people trying to get some information and some interviews. So I will let those who've got there. Lawrence.
Oh, hello, Scott. Thank you very much for the presentation, and congratulations. It is a long time coming. Just in relation to the pay zones that would have been correlated to Mukuyu-1 in the Upper Angwa with the observance of the logs there. Are you able to make any comments about what you see in Mukuyu-1 that lines up with the findings and the sampling, of course, in Mukuyu-2 sidetrack? Thank you.
Sure. So from a log correlation perspective, we do believe we can correlate across it. It is 7 kilometers away and across a couple of fault blocks. So we just need to treat it with a little bit of caution at this stage. And I think once we get some of the chemostrat data from both wells, we'll be much more confident in that correlation across from Mukuyu-1 to Mukuyu-2. So it's again, we're in a fluvial environment here, so correlating the sands is sometimes a little bit fraught, but we think we can see some correlations in some of those units at least. I think also for a fluvial environment perspective, you only need a net to gross of somewhere around the 30% mark for all of these little bodies and channels and channel belts to connect up. So even though you might see thinner pay zones immediately at the well, as you go further away, you're going to see potentially thicker units as you move into the center of the channels, or you start to get stacked channels involved. So it is going to change, and that's where the 3D will really benefit us. So just because you only see that amount of pay at this particular location, it's going to change as you move around. So I think that should be brought in mind as well.
Is it observed, and you can sort of see this a little bit on the seismic, that the sand packages in the Upper Angwa were a little bit thicker in the Mukuyu-1 flank location? Is that right, or is that still yet to be determined?
Yeah, we can observe that just really from the logs. So yeah, we do have some of those units that are thicker, and we have some of those units that have a varying net to gross proportion as well, because sometimes you're in some of the muddier sections of that, or you've got some tidal stuff, and then you go into the channels and the stack. So we've really got to do a bit more study in terms of the cutoffs from a net to gross perspective to figure out what we can apply that net flag to. And I think dynamically and in a production time frame, you're going to have a much greater amount of net than what you're ever going to put on a static petrophysical cutoff.
Indeed. Thank you.
James.
Yeah, hi, Scott. Firstly, congrats.
Sorry, James, you're just on mute.
Oh, sorry. Scott, mate, congratulations on today's announcement. It's massive, and all the shareholders on Hot Copper are very glad to see the results. Just a quick one with the lab results. I guess it's not going to be another 10 months until the results like Mukuyu-1. When can we expect the lab results to feed into the existing data and announced through all of that?
So the fluids, we're preparing the first shipment. Those have got to go by boat because they're pressurized gas samples. They can't be put on air freight. So those will go across to the US. That's a relatively quick turnaround. The core studies though do take a long time to get all of that information and integrate it, particularly because we've got a lot of reservoirs that we're trying to evaluate. But I can't give you an exact time frame now, but it'll be at some stage next year. It's definitely not going to happen this year.
Yeah, no worries. And so then in terms of net pay figures, do we have to wait until the flow test to have an updated figure based on the conservative amount that's been released so far?
Yeah, we've got to integrate a number of things. So firstly, the geological data that we gather from the cores, integrating that into the logs, and then you also need to integrate the dynamic data piece, which is the flow test aspect. So it's not a you don't just plug in the in the data and you get an answer. It's it's an iterative process.
It's interpretation.
And
yeah,
again,
sure.
we've got it's still the very early stages. This is only the second well in the basin. So
yeah, understandable.
Go and have a look at any basin. You're going to get a variety of results across it, and trying to characterize an entire basin based on two wells is not really statistically appropriate.
Exactly. And one final question. Maybe I'm reading into this too much, but in the announcement, you talked about fluid samples. Do you have any expectations of oil recovered, or in the Lower Angwa, or in the other sections of the Upper Angwa that weren't sampled?
Yeah. So with relating to oil, I'm guessing you're referring to liquid hydrocarbons. So liquid hydrocarbons are also condensate. So we believe in this location, Mukuyu-2, because we're up dip. This is a little more a little drier than what we saw in Mukuyu-1 down on the flank. So we saw less fluorescence in Mukuyu-2 than we did in Mukuyu-1, and that's probably related to we've got the depot center through here in the north, which is a lot deeper. The source rock is a lot more mature, more in the dry gas window. We've got some source rock within the structure that's in the wet gas, and some of it in the oil window. But you're going to get a lot of charge from the north here that comes across, and will basically dry out your liquids rich gas and make it drier. So we think Mukuyu-2 is probably more on the gas condensate realm, and what those CGRs are, we're going to have to get it from the lab and get it measured properly. So we did see some on the fluid analyzer, some C6 plus when we were sampling. Obviously, we saw it in the mud gas as well, which we've announced. So we've got to get the compositional data from the lab first.
So no expectations as you drill deeper into the Lower Angwa?
Well, as we said, we think this is more gas condensate in this part of the structure, being shallower and being in the fetch area of the kitchen to the north, rather than having the source and the hydrocarbons concentrated from the interbedded source rock that we have within these units. But again, I think I've alluded in previous webinars that our source and migration story is very complicated. So we're going to need some time to figure it out. It's good that it's complicated because we've got so many source rocks. It just means to identify exactly where your charges come from takes a lot. So that's where now we've got a full suite of mud gas data from Mukuyu-2. We can look at the isotope data from that to track, hopefully, where a lot of these gases have come from. So what's migrated into the Dandy and all the way down through to the Lower Angwa, and try and get some indications of where it's all come from. We have seen from Mukuyu-1 that we have multiple source rock intervals and they mix. We can see that from the isotope data. So we've had multiple charge episodes here. So trying to predict your fluid phase is going to be hard. I don't think we'll ever figure it out accurately. We'll probably get some trends, but it's this will probably be more like what you see in the Northwest Shelf, where you get gas condensate and then you get oil rims in some of these fields.
No worries. Thank you so much for answering, and congratulations once again today.
Thank you. I've got time for one more before I've got to head off. James.
Hi, mate. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
G'day. Yeah, congratulations on the discovery. Just in terms of the current drilling timetable, when do you expect to announce fluid samples for the Lower Angwa?
So we've got a TD first, and then we've got to run our logging program. So we're still on track to finish within that sort of 28-day time frame. Obviously, by taking this intermediate logging step, that's added a number of days onto the 21, but we should get it done within that 28-day period that we've given guidance provided. We don't have any issues. We're hopefully not expecting any, given we've drilled the section in the main bore before. So yeah, that nothing's changed in that regard.
Okay, thanks. And then in terms of converting, it sounds like both Mukuyu-1 and Mukuyu-2's perspective into 2C. In terms of a timeline to get to a 2C number, is that more like sort of March, June next year after all the interpretation and?
Yeah, look, the contingent resources conversion question comes up often. Again, there's only 2 wells in the basin. We're still working off 2D seismic. We could do some contingent resources, but it would be limited to a small area around the actual wells themselves. I don't think anyone is going to allow us from a contingent resource perspective to correlate all the way across through here. It's just because of the fault blocks, the limited pressure data we've got on Mukuyu-1 as well, which it becomes a challenge to prove they're in communication, and it's all part of one. I don't think they're in communication anyway, but it's that would be a stretch, I think, for most reserves auditors. So 3D seismic certainly will help that if you can map that continuity through there. But again, we've got to finish the work and also get our quarter log calibration sorted out too, so that we can go and provide a reasonable range from a petrophysical point of view for that exercise.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thanks again.
Okay, I'll wrap things up here. Today is going to be a shorter version. Again, we've still got the Lower Angwa to come, which will provide us with what we believe will be an additional discovery. If concluding our program, we've got a bit of drilling ahead of us to get to TD, and then conclude our logging and evaluation program. Once that's done, I'll provide a more detailed wrap up of the entire result, and we can get into some more questions there. At the moment, we're still involved in operations and still watching very closely. But again, just like to thank everyone, our shareholders, all of our team at Invictus and our partners, and I think for also a particular acknowledgement to my family who supported this. Has been tough, has been a struggle, and they've worn this and lived this every day with me over the last nearly over 10 years now. So it's really, really overwhelming. So thank you to them and to my wife in particular. But again, thanks to all our shareholders for the support, for your belief, allowing us to go out and do this and chase this this wildcat endeavor. And sometimes these things do come off, and it's amazing to be sitting at the moment and looking forward then to, we've got a big basin, we've got a big position, and we've got a very bright future ahead of us. So thank you everyone, and take care, and we'll talk again when we've got the Lower Angwa results. Till then, thank you.